This is the Parenting Power Up video series number 3 of 20, Positivity for Parents, Evaluation.
We hope you enjoyed the last video that talked about your job as a parent. Remember, that tied back to principle number 3 that we talked about in our very first video. And we hope that you did your assignment, finding a card and putting no matter what and even if, and really brought that into the forefront of your mind this past week.
We're going to quiz you on that occasionally. What's your job as a parent? Say it out loud.
I'll say it for you. Love them no matter what and even if.
That's it. And remember, leave the just out of it. Go review video 2 if you want a little refresher on that. Let's dive into principle 1. Do you remember what that one is, Vicki?
It is that positive parenting is really about personal development.
Yes. And this is the important place to start. I think of this every time I get on an airplane. Right? You know when you're going on a flight and they go through the little safety instructions, right? And there's this part in the presentation where they talk about these oxygen masks that fall from the ceiling, very attractive little yellow cups.
Right.
And you're supposed to put it on your face and secure it with the rubber band. They always say at that point, if you're traveling with young children or someone who needs assistance,
put the mask on yourself first and then take care of them.
And why did they say that?
Because if you're passed out in the aisle, you're no help to anybody.
Right? You're in the way now. You're part of the problem. And that is so essential for parenting. We've got to take care of ourselves. That's why we've listed that as the first principle of positive parenting. And to understand positivity, I think it's important to get past all the trite, fluffy, just think positive that you hear, sometimes here on YouTube or from speakers on the stage. I'm a psychologist, and I think it's important to understand the psychology behind positivity. Let's start with a basic psychological principle that I call metacognition.
Right.
Now, Vicki, you're familiar with that word.
Right.
Can you explain what metacognition is?
So cognition obviously is thinking, and meta kind of means the next step up, thinking about your thinking.
Be careful with this. You can hurt yourself.
You have to get kind of to a different stage to be able to really take a step back and look at your own thoughts. And then that puts you in a powerful place where you can make some choices.
Yes. In fact, metacognition creates that space for you. When you start to think about your thinking, you'll see things going on in your own thinking that you may not be pleased with. All right? So brace yourself a little for that. But it also puts you into a position of choice. And until we see it as a choice, it's not.
Yeah.
So let's dig in. Turn on your metacognition. Think about your thinking. And let's track what's going on in your own mind. So to do that, let's create the model. I'm going to put it up here on the flip chart for you so that you can see exactly what we're talking about here. And first, we get to look at a line, a continuum. Right here in the middle is what it is. Sorry, these pens don't have very good font, so hopefully you can read that well. But just remember, this is what it is. Now you've heard, it is what it is.
And that's so annoying at times.
Right? I mean, depending on who's saying it and why, but notice that whatever it is right now, it just means who you are, where you are, the way things are, what your kids are doing, what they're not doing.
Yeah, it's just the circumstances of life, right there,
Right.
right in this moment.
Without changing anything, it is what it is. Okay, now I put that in the middle of a continuum because what it is could always be, let's put better over here, or worse. Is that true? What do you think, Vicki?
It is true. I will say, though, I've practiced seeing that. Because there's a lot of times people think it couldn't get any worse. This is the worst it could be. So we've got to practice looking sometimes for what could be worse and what could be better.
Right. You know, we learned this very profoundly A couple of years ago, do you remember I was speaking in Orlando and I got a text from my sister. Now, I was in a meeting where I couldn't really pull out my phone or I could, respond to this message from my sister, but I got a little notification on my watch. Mm-hmm. And it said, you know how you get that little truncated version, the short version? And it said, I wanted you to know that Talon had an accident last night. He was on his annual volunteer first responder TIMP weekend and slipped and fell off a 30-foot ...
That was all that came through on the watch.
Yeah. And you know what ... means? There's more.
Yeah.
But you don't get it here. You have to go to your phone, right? And I couldn't get to my phone at the time. So I'm just thinking, well, all the things you think when you have that kind of a text. My own dad lost his father to an accident when Dad was 5.
Right.
And you remember our friends who crashed in that plane. A small plane crash, it killed 2 of our friends. And I'm picturing that this is the kind of text I'm getting right now from my sister. And just imagine how that feels. Have you ever got that text, had that information? Well, after I finished up the meeting, which it was about to close anyway, right? And I slipped out into the hall and I pulled out my phone. And I'll pick you up where we left off, okay? Because the full text read, slipped and fell off a 30-foot waterfall. Mm-hmm. And broke both of his ankles and seriously injured his knee. They could use your prayers.
Such relief that it's not worse.
Do you remember how relieved we felt when we found out, okay, he's all right?
He's going to live.
Wait a minute. What is wrong with us? And you were feeling relieved too, weren't you? Admit it. When I shared with you the rest of the story, right? Because we've got it built up in our brain. Here's what's going on. I want you to see what happened psychologically, okay? Here's the word, evaluation. Now, Vicki, tell us what evaluation is while I'm writing this.
So evaluation is when you look at something and you judge it as either good or bad, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And what I want you to notice about your own psychology is that you can't turn it off.
Right.
Is this true?
Yeah.
We are constantly judging, right? Mm-hmm. You judge yourself pretty harshly sometimes. You judge your spouse. I'm judging you, Vicki.
You judge the people in the car next to you.
Out on the road. Yeah. You get cut off or whatever. You're judging me. Mm-hmm. You're judging us. It's all right. We're judging you. Right?
You can't turn it off.
You can't turn it off. You're constantly doing it. It's the way you are designed. Your brain is supposed to do this. Okay, now judgment. Vicki, you're an educator.
Right.
And a lot of educators are very familiar with this. Evaluation implies comparison with some standard.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you're evaluating a child in the school,
I'm taking the standard and I'm seeing where they fall according to other children in their age group.
Right, compared to the standard, right? So notice that this is happening. Now, look at our model, okay? It is what it is. And going back to our nephew, what it is 2 compound fractures, both ankles. Mm-hmm. This is what it is.
And a messed up knee.
And a messed up knee. I always forget that part. Now, in your mind, what's going on? You take what it is and you compare it to something. Now, can you imagine anything better than that?
He skied down the mountain and went home for dinner.
And everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Right?
No phone call.
You know what, Vicki, I was teaching this to a group of police officers recently, and one guy in the room, he's like, 1 broken ankle. Yeah.
Well, maybe that would be better.
I mean, arguably, yes, that would be better, right? But we can do better than that. Like you were saying, okay, he safely got down the mountain, no accident occurred, no injuries, right? That's not what it is, but we can imagine that. When we take 2 broken ankles, which is what it is, and we compare it to something better, like no broken ankles. How do we feel about 2 broken ankles?
It's terrible.
This sucks.
Yeah.
This
It's a
is
bad
really
situation.
bad. Now, so the arrow I'm showing you here is the direction of the comparison. The negative here is the feeling
Right.
that's created when we make that comparison. So short version, when you compare what you've got to something better, you feel worse about what you got.
Right.
Are we clear? Now, you're probably getting ahead of me because can you imagine anything worse?
Well, you thought that when you didn't read the whole text. Your
Yes.
thought was that Talon had now left your niece a widow and his little baby without a daddy.
That same cop.
Uh-huh.
3 broken ankles.
How do you get 3?
Are you serious? But it could be so much worse. And I helped you out with this because I told you where my mind went.
Right.
Right? When we take 2 broken ankles and we compare it to something far worse, like the death of that young father on Mount Timpanogos, then how do you feel about 2 broken ankles?
It's very doable. I'm
Woohoo!
happy about that.
Yeah, can I get
And
a
it's-
woohoo from you guys?
It may not be your choice, but it's still a whole lot better than what is worse.
Yes. Now, as we look at the model, it can always be better. It can always be worse. Really, what could be worse than 2 broken ankles? Or what if you had died?
You know what? That's what somebody asked us once. He said, what if he had died? There is no worse. Well, one of the parts you didn't mention
Really?
is that when he fell down this waterfall, he fell into a crevasse. And
Yes.
he landed in a puddle of water down there.
Ice water.
Right? If he had died and had not been with the team that he was, his wife may not have been able to know where he was for
It would have just been lost.
years maybe. I mean, to me that feels worse if he's gone and you don't know where he is or can't recover his body. It's kind of macabre a little bit, but there is always a way to see that it could be worse. And there is always a way to look and see that it could be better. For instance,
Yes.
even in this situation, he was with a whole team that had the day before practiced the very kind of rescue they had to do for him that very day. So, I mean, it could have been worse in that he hadn't been with that team or they hadn't practiced the day before.
Right.
You know, so there really is a way to see it that way. What you can always look for the worse and the better.
I think that's important to accept as we move forward because sometimes in our mind we tell ourselves, oh, this is the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
We even say it that way sometimes, right? You look at social media posts, this is the worst thing ever, the best thing ever. No, it's not. It never is. Test yourself on that, okay? September 11th. How could it be worse than those terrorist attacks that occurred on that day? One more plane, one more casualty. It could always be worse. All right, so understanding that, what does this have to do with parenting? Here's a trick question. And I warned you, it's a trick question. Okay? How you doing as a parent? Do you see why it's a trick question?
Yeah.
You know the best answer for that? It is what it is. That's exactly how you're doing as a parent. It could always be better, it could always be worse. So I want you to consider for just a minute that you've already got an answer to that. And your answer to that determines how you feel. And how you feel determines how you show up. Here's another trick question. How are your kids doing? Right?
Yeah.
I had a guy sitting in my office as a single dad, okay? And he's like, oh, my son is doing this and that, and at school he's getting into problems, and he's not showing up for practice on the team, and I stopped him. I said, wait, you have a son? Okay. And he had an immediate reaction of, he kind of rolled his eyes a little.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
like that's obvious.
but how amazing is that? Right? And he's in school? Well, he's not doing very well.
And he's
Okay.
physically well enough to be on a team?
Hey, it could always be worse. Look, I have worked in a juvenile correctional facility on a murder unit. Okay, just wrap your head around that. Don't think about it too much, but these are all kids under the age of 18 who had all killed someone. All right? How's your kid doing? Right? Now,
Right.
some of you may be in that position. Okay, it could still always be worse. So just notice that that's happening. Now, how are we going to apply this? All right, so we have to get to the therefore what, right? I'm teaching you a lot of psychology about this, but how do we actually apply it and get ourselves into a positive evaluation of what it is the way it is right now? Help us out, Vicki.
So one of the things that you can do, this is probably the most powerful thing you can do, is to take whatever is right now, where your situation is, and show gratitude for it. And the best way, it sounds so awkward, but the best way is to look at how could it be worse? What is good about this situation? And, you know, I like kind of maybe those wordings, what's good about this situation or how could it be worse? Sometimes it's really a stretch for you as a parent in the situation you are to say what is good about this. But you can always look backwards a little bit and say, well, what could be worse? Because if you remember, if we look at what's worse, that's where we get to that positive feeling. So if you want to come up with some gratitude for the next 5 days, just take a moment to have some feeling, some thought, maybe write it down, something you're grateful for about where you are as a parent, where the situation, maybe the hard thing you're going through, the reason that you came to this channel and this series right now. Find one thing that you can be grateful for that situation, that circumstance, what it is, for the next 5 days.
Thank you, Vicki, for queuing that up for us, because gratitude is psychologically proven to be the fastest way, basically, to get yourself into a positive evaluation of what it is the way it is. Now, notice we're not asking you to be grateful for the problem, but we are saying open up the problem, look inside of it, find what you truly are grateful for. And I would encourage you to make a list. In fact, let's just do this for 5 days, okay? 5 days, you make a list of 25 things for which you are sincerely grateful about your role as a parent or about your child and what's going on with your child. Look inside of it, okay? Open it up. And it could be as simple as, well, I'm grateful that I'm learning some things. Are you? I mean, even in the pain, you're learning some things. You're here with us. Are you grateful for this video? Put it on the list if you are. Now, if you're not, then don't pretend. But be sincere about it. What am I grateful for? You do this for 5 days. I promise it's going to change the energy. Now, the model that we're sharing with you, and we'll get into the other side of the model on the next video, so make sure you come back. We have a PDF version of this model for you, full color. Just go grab it. The URL is on the screen right now, drpauljenkins.com/themodel. All one word. We'll put this in your inbox. Okay, go grab it so that you can print it out and have a reference to that as we come back to the rest of the model in our next video.